So just remember what was stated earlier about, making sure when you're doing your eligibility, you go ahead and certify those kids so they can get their free lunch because of the category that they're in. And so when you don't, like it was stated earlier, you're going to accrue a bill. And then, most of our families, they can't pay those bills, and it takes a lot of legwork to straighten it out. So that's why we recommend that you make sure you're doing your eligibilities as soon as you know that this child or family is deemed homelessness. And just want to make certain that when you look at your ARP funds, if you have any left, or 1 and 2, I did state earlier there were more flexibility with those funds, and at some point you can buy food, but however, it has to be supported by data. If a child, missing a meal causes him or her not to be able to function in school, data should support that request to use AR1 and 2 for food purchases, okay? Just make sure certain that we're doing the right things when it comes to food purchases. Federal funds and food purchases raises a lot of eyebrows. Okay, so next up is Miss Julie Smith. We get a lot of questions about foster care, safety plans, who's eligible, is there DHR involvement, whose funds should we be using? And as you know, foster care has their own law, the Fostering Connection Act. So we're going to kind of get an understanding on those safety plans and when are children eligible if they happen to be in foster care. So, okay.
I know you are super tired. You've been here all day. Me, not so much. I'm going to try to really just answer any questions that you all have. And I want to start by saying I want to give y'all the number to state DHR intake just because it's super important and I don't want to forget. The number there is 334-242-9500. That way, if you've run into any problems with your local DHRs, you can always call this number to get where you need to go. And again, it's 334-242-9500. They asked me to come and kind of talk a little bit about safety plans. A lot of you have probably been here a long time, so you know about them, but I'm just going to kind of touch on it. A safety plan is an agreement that we put together with the family when we identify a safety risk. And a safety plan, one of the questions was, how long can they last? Well, a safety plan can last as long as it needs to, but 45 days is what they should last prior to court intervention. So the worker should be filing something within the court within 45 days of those safety plans. Now, a parent should agree to the safety plan. We cannot do a safety plan without the parent agreeing and signing that safety plan along with the safety care provider, DHR worker, and a supervisor. Another question we get is safety planning in foster care. If a child is in foster care, that is the safety plan. So we wouldn't need a safety plan in that situation. One of the questions that we also get that I was asked to kind of touch on is, what is an ISP? And for us, that's an individualized service plan. That is the plan that we work in conjunction with the family to meet all their goals, their needs. This could include their education issues, substance abuse issues, visitation with parents. And one of the questions I got was, are educators invited to those? Hopefully you all are invited. The staff at the schools are invited into those. And if you're not, that is one of those questions that I would definitely ask the worker when they come to your school. Hey, we heard there's an ISP. We'd like to be involved. What do we need to do? A lot of times when cases get transferred from an investigative worker to what we call an ongoing worker or to a foster care worker, sometimes that information is not relayed. And so we want to make sure all educators are advocating and asking those questions. That's why I gave you that number to start with. If you're told something and you don't quite understand it or you don't have clarification, call that number, and we can try to assist you and see which way you need to go, because we all know education is super important, and we want educators involved with our children through our safety plan providers and the children in foster care. Now, I know there might be a lot of questions. I just kind of wanted to touch on the safety plans, so I'll really just open it up for questions right now and see if I can answer any that you all have. Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes we have difficulty in getting a copy of the safety plan just because we don't know who we're supposed to be giving information to.
Right.
And I know a lot of the DHO workers in our area have asked the parents or the caregiver to provide that to the school. Is there some way we can get that through a more formal relationship with DHR?
The parents have to release that, or the safety plan provider. What county are you in? In Lee County? Yes, the parents have to release that, again, or the safety plan provider. However, there should be some conversation where the safety plan provider could give that to you. Because I know sometimes what I've heard in the past here is that, it's hard to get in touch with the parents. Sometimes when they do a safety plan, we're not, they're not able to get in touch with the parents for a while, but the safety plan provider can, in fact, give you a copy of that. And so if there's any problem with that, the safety plan provider could call DHR and get a copy made or whatever they need to. But that's how it should be coming to you. Any more questions?
In regards to homeless verification, so when a safety plan is in place, in regards to a homeless verification, when a safety plan is in place, it's our understanding that it has nothing to do with custody because it's an agreement with the family. So sometimes students are moved from one family member to another family member, so then that student would be considered unaccompanied because they're in the care of someone other than their custodial parent. Is that kind of a consensus? And I guess I'm speaking to the room to make sure that we're identifying those students correctly. So a safety plan, the majority of the time, a safety plan changes the location of the student, where the student is currently living.
Right.
So recently, and this is just right off the top of my head because it just happened last week, that the grandmother contacted me regarding the McKinney-Vento program and what services would be available to those students because now they were in her care and she lived outside of the zone. So I identified them as unaccompanied youth because now they're in the care of someone other than their custodial parent. So I just want to make sure that I'm doing that correctly when it comes to a safety plan, which I understand is temporary.
I'll tell you what I know then. Okay, so when I think about safety plans, I know someone had to write a safety plan, and it's usually DHR, okay? Now, because a child moves to another location, then they are under the guardian of someone else, but who put them there? So in my mind, we don't know if that child is going to go back home, so that child could be awaiting a foster placement. And remember, that was removed from the law. That's my thoughts. Because, I mean, if you don't know at that point if the house is going to, or if the home is going to be sufficient enough for that child return. So he or she kind of just there, waiting for something to be determined. So in my mind, they're waiting to determine if they're going to go to foster care placement or back home, if that makes any sense. I don't. I don't recommend. I'll let you add something.
Right. I would just go back by what she's saying is that no, they're still in that custody of that guardian. And what you're saying is correct. They might or might not go back home because we could put a child on a safety plan. The family could agree to a safety plan, and then 30, 45 days out, the child goes into foster care. So it's a whole different placement. Any more?
Remember, they still shouldn't be any barriers to enrollment. The child still should be enrolled. And if transportation is an issue, remember she talked about that meeting that they have, that is ISP.
Right, the ISP, that should be, that absolutely, if there is a transportation issue, that needs to be addressed in the ISP because it can be handled.
Right.
In writing at that ISP.
So that's why you should invoke yourself in that meeting. So if it's not a child that's going to be homeless, then transportation is an issue, and they can't assert the Fostering Connection Act, then they should have that meeting where this should be a line item in that plan that is written through the agency.
Have no idea that this is happening. Like what she mentioned, I just have no idea that this is happening when they have those safety plans going on. So by the time I get it, it's like, okay, are we MV? I mean, it's clear what you said, but I can't get in because I do not know it's happening until after the fact. So I don't know how to.
What I do know, a lot of times, it's usually an emergency situation. Kids are just pulled from the home, and I know the work have to place them someplace so they can go to school. So a lot of times, you don't know because it happens so fast. But there should be some processes or some procedures at a school through the counseling office where somebody is immediately notified. And then you all can hold a meeting and you can reconvene the entire team. The DHR team, the DHR team and the school team. So I think that goes back to the LEA. What are your procedures when this happens? You know, so when you look this summer at how is this working out, develop a plan. If a child comes with a case manager, here's the procedure, okay?
Okay, I have one from online from Kristen Ferguson. With safety plans, there are sometimes instances where the safety plan states that a parent cannot have contact with the child. Many times the safety plan resource does not notify the school there's even a safety plan in place. As someone asked prior, is there an alternate way to be notified other than the family? Many times we may not know contact is in the order, and that is very concerning, especially in concerns to check out.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. And I think where it needs to come from and where it starts is making sure that whoever does that safety plan, and that's with DHR, making sure those workers talk with the safety plan providers and those safety plan providers are notifying the school. Or DHR is notifying the school. I do absolutely agree. I will say this, I have been an investigative CAN worker. I'm on year 23 now, and although I'm not still in the county doing those things, that I know I had a great relationship with my schools. And so I think that is where DHR, as where school, that's where they need to bridge the gap. I mean, it's definitely something that needs to happen. So I agree, it is frustrating, but making sure on our end, educating our workers to talk with the safety plan providers and notifying the schools. Because there's some things you know that we can't tell you on a safety plan, but we can talk to the safety plan providers and they can tell you. They can tell you anything that they want to tell you. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So just in listening, it seems as if, and if anybody else already knows this answer, I'm sorry, I just need to know myself, that you are speaking as if DHR is a separate entity from the safety plan providers. Am I correct in assuming that?
Well, DHR is a part of the program with the safety plan providers. We just can't give out the safety plan. We can absolutely be involved with you with the safety plan provider, but what I'm speaking of is if there are things that a family member knows about a family that they can tell you all day long. That doesn't mean because of us with confidentiality that we can tell you that.
Okay.
It could be some ongoing investigation that I just can't divulge all that information to you.
I understand that. So now my second question is, can you define safety plan provider? Because the conversation just started as if everybody in the room knows what that role is.
Safety plan provider is anybody, whether it be a teacher, a cousin, uncle, brother, anybody who is willing and able to care for a child that the family agrees upon.
Okay, so then back to I think this will be the third time this question is going to be asked then. So then, how does the school know a student has a safety plan?
You will only know,
If the safety plan provider says it upon registration and enrollment?
or if DHR tells you. DHR should be having some conversation, or the safety plan provider. And if you're in a county where that is not happening, that's when you need to call the state office and let us know.
Okay, so, because, we're talking about procedures and all of these things, so then,
There's nothing written that
Right.
if you're asking about that, no.
no, I'm just thinking in terms of the development of such.
I got you.
So then, either this person providing the safetiness for the child
Right.
tells the school, or DHR tells the school.
That's correct.
Okay.
Or the parent. All right. Thank y'all for listening, and you'll have that number if you have any questions. One more question?
Okay, we are getting more and more children whose parents have been incarcerated, and I just don't know what the process is. Is DHR involved with those families when a parent is incarcerated?
Not necessarily.
Okay. All right, then that brings up a next question, and LaDonna, I'll just get
So
with you.
what I've seen, especially in rural counties, if parents or somebody get incarcerated, and everybody knows everybody in the community, and the child is going to school, they just leave them with grandma, and nobody asks any questions, and the child continues to come to school. Of course, then that child becomes an unaccompanied, might be homeless, and it might not be homeless, depending on how new the child is staying at the grandmother's house. So, like she said, it could be a case where DHR does step in. But I know some places in Alabama, because it's so small and everybody knows everybody, they just let them continue going to school.
Okay, this is a question from online. It's twofold, and it's from two different people, but one person just kind of reiterated what the last person stated. It says, why can DHR not communicate with the school system when a safety plan is put in place? Is there a rule that prohibits it?
I don't know that there's a rule that prohibits it, but there are certain situations that do, based on investigations, I will tell you that. And that would be something, again, where it would go back to the parents, because this is really the most important part that I can tell you. A parent does not lose their ability to parent with a safety plan, and it would be at their discretion what they disclose. Also, if they agree for the safety plan provider to be that provider is now in the care and control of that child, and they could, in fact, talk to the school. But yes, there are limits sometimes into what the DHR worker can disclose, just like with law enforcement.
Okay, and then Erica followed up with that and said, could they just let us know there's a plan and not just give us a copy?
I think absolutely they could let you know there's a plan.
So we have a protocol in place between our agency, our school system, and our county DHR. And I would recommend everybody have that in black and white. And we have in there, since they can't provide us the safety plan, we've asked for a letter on their letterhead stating who is that safety plan provider. And they are to give that to the school within 24 hours so that we know who we're supposed to release the child to. So that's how we handle it.
And what county are you in?
Mobile County.
I think I definitely will say this. Again, as a county worker, we had a great relationship with school. I knew all the guidance counselors, talked to the teachers. So yes, there absolutely can be conversation. DHR can let you know there's a safety plan. And so we have supervisor training coming up where we train our supervisors in June and July. So based on what I'm hearing, it's fair to say we need to make sure that these supervisors are aware that education, schools need to be notified of these safety plans. Because I can see just from the questions that that is absolutely a frustration, and it would be to me as well. So I will make sure that we add that. And again, I want to say thank you for everything that you all do. I have raised children, and on my last one in school, going into the 9th grade, so I don't know what I would do if I had to educate my own child. And so I know how important it is, and those are your babies, no matter how old they are. I know that. And you can be such a huge support for the children. And so I will absolutely take that back and make sure. I actually will be doing a segment at the supervisors conference, so I will make sure myself to let all the supervisors know, making sure your workers have notified, and if they don't, that they have, like she said, some protocol in place, because it's not a secret. It doesn't have to be a secret. When I say disclosing things, I just mean sometimes investigations, because that's where my mind goes. But I will definitely address that with them. I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Any more questions?
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Julie, for here's something to put in your office and a token of our appreciation. Thank you so much. Good. Okay, we're almost there. Another concern that I get calls about is housing. Can we pay rent? Can we do this? Can we pay utilities and all of those things? And one of the agency partnership you all should have in your LEA is with your housing authority, HUD office, if you have a local office, so you can sit with those committee and brainstorm ways to solve our housing issues. I know there's been questions about whether families with school-aged children have priority when it comes to housing authority, or when they try to applicate for housing. So we want to make certain that we understand what the constraints are, how we move forward with helping our family with housing and affordable housing. So, and then we're going to get a understanding